Anyway, okay, so we're here to talk about this album, this wonderful album, Disco Lasers, which is remarkable. If you haven't bought it, I suggest you do so. There will be a purchasing link just below this video. It's a strange album of oddities, aliens and whales and gods, and I'm just wondering, is there an overarching theme to this record?
Yeah, I think it's not so much a concept album, I guess, in that it's about one thing, but I guess each song is its own kind of universe and its own story that maybe shines a light a bit on an aspect of human nature. Um, and so it's all kind of a journey through different worlds, I guess. Which is why when I released it, I said it's set in a parallel dimension, just so you immediately get the idea that it's not of this earth. And yeah, and actually, I don't know if you've seen the music videos. Kind of do have a bit of a through story. There's a traveler who's a lonely whale, traveling the universe, who kind of pops in throughout each song's music video as kind of a maybe they've come to help, or they've heard a distress signal or something. So yeah, there's kind of, it's not a very specific connection, but there's definitely a bit of a through line, if that makes
Well,
sense.
well, you kind of preempted the next question I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you, is this sailing dangerously close to a concept album? You just said it isn't a concept album. And are you a fan of concept albums in general?
Yeah, I love them. I mean, I'd like to think, I mean, for me, it's a bit of a concept album because I, I know I mean, I definitely, hang on, let me work out how to say this.
Okay.
Um, when it sort of evolved as we were writing it, and some of the songs that I thought were going to be on the album weren't, because it all started to I started to understand what it was that we were making. So in that way, it definitely is a concept album because it's about how we understand ourselves as humans, I guess, and how we use stories and science and folklore and art to understand that. Um, yeah, so I mean, I'd like to say it's a concept album, but I wouldn't maybe use it too technically because I think I could get, you know, oh, cool.
I mean, I was going to actually ask you talking about symbolism. The album is packed with it. It has an almost storybook quality to it. I mean, was that what you were aiming for when you were writing these songs, when you were constructing this album?
Yeah, I think that's how I generally kind of try to understand the world anyway. I
Mhm.
grew up reading a lot of, fairy tales and um, ancient myths and things like that. So that kind of like weight of those stories that are so deep, but they're also so universal because we all feel these things. We feel that like ache for the wild, or that
Mm.
when you look at a night sky and you just feel that awe or wonder. We all have these feelings. And I think a lot of the album, some of them come from very personal stories for me, but for some reason I process my emotions through space symbolism.
Right, no,
But
no.
yeah, that's how it comes out. But yeah, and I write a lot of poems and things, and I just like the idea of kind of stories that are bigger than us, explaining human nature, I guess. Um, yeah.
Is that not a constant source of pain in a way? You find yourself looking up at the night sky and realizing how small you kind of are, really. And when you realize how long the Earth has been here, how little time you have, you
Yeah.
get this, you move towards this sort of aching feeling of closing in sometimes.
Yeah, although I think, yeah, and it's that kind of emotion that's almost bigger than you. Like it's
Yeah,
hard
yeah.
to process that feeling. And I think often the way that I feel is actually because we are here for so short a time
Yeah.
and we are so tiny in this huge universe, but we've yet to find other life, and we are incredibly unique. So actually that is amazing. Like we are amazing. This whole universe and this world is, yeah. So I get a bit carried away with just being blown away by how wonderful everything is. And obviously, there's human beings are great at destroying things as well. But
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
yeah, I think there's so much wonder that you can have for.
And that sense of childlike wonderment certainly comes across in the songs, which is why I mentioned the kind of storybook quality that it has. Did a lot of thought go into the sequencing of the tracks? You had a specific idea of what order they should go in?
Yes, we wanted to start with Wonder because it's kind of a introduction to, I guess, this traveling character who's lost in space trying to find connection, and then the next sort of the songs follow as maybe the different worlds that it visits or the different places that it visits. So to be honest, I can't remember exactly how we came up with the final order, um, and we kind of ended on that, I guess, epilogue, which um, just invites you to go out into the world and yeah. So, and I guess the last song, "Thank You Goodbye." I mean, it had to be at the end because it it says goodbye. But
Mm.
a lot of the album as well for me was kind of working at my own creativity, I guess, and I think in this world sometimes it's not very valued, the creative side of all of us that we all have, and you often find, like I find myself, and I did especially a few years ago, just really struggling to say, oh, I am an artist, I'm a musician, I write music. I was always sort of had this voice going like, yeah, but you know, you're not really doing a real thing. Like this is just, and that's very, very unhelpful when you're trying to make things. But
Sure.
but yeah, so I think this album was also a way of taking control of it and letting it out, I guess, if that makes sense.
I mean, there certainly seems to be this urge for connection, I guess, in a lot of these songs. I don't know whether that comes from you or whether you're talking about us or the world in a wider sense.
I guess it must be all. I mean, I think probably the songs when they initially are written are from me in a very personal place. But when you release it, then people listen to it and they can take on their own, and it can connect to them in a way that I might not have thought of or intended, but it'll reach some meaning that they understand, which is the wonderful thing about music, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely,
Not too
absolutely. I mean,
specific.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of focus on this album on loss, I think, whether that's the way I've read it, I don't know. There's certainly a lot of focus on loss, loneliness on this record. I just wondered why is that?
Hmm. Well, I guess it was things I was maybe feeling at the time. I wrote some of these songs I wrote or as poems
Okay.
probably about 5 years ago, and I was at that time temping in an office in a very toxic environment and very unhappy, but they didn't really need me to do much work. So I spent the entire time just doing my own, admin and writing poems. And a lot of the poems were quite desperate because I think I was in a bit of a place of like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah, yeah.
This can't be it. Like I've got so much to do and I don't know how to get it out. I don't know how to. And so, for example, Disco Lasers, which is the
Hmm.
title track, that was when I was sitting at this office one day and I was like, oh no. For some reason, I had a bit of an existential crisis about what if I'm a terrible mother. But I'd also been reading The New Scientist that day and had discovered that they were trying to make spaceships faster by pointing laser beams at them. And I was like, oh, that's also excellent. So,
Right.
um, yeah, that's why I had that. And then I just was sitting there writing this poem furiously while, I don't know, some corporate brokers around me were doing stuff, making money. Um,
Right.
so yeah, there's probably that kind of desperation or need to be understood
Hmm.
and connect to other people who might understand me. And yeah, so
Sure.
maybe that is why that's come out.
So was this album a cathartic album for you? It helped you get a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, I guess it. Yeah, I guess it did. I mean, I think most music that I write is that kind of. You're obviously getting something off your chest, even if it's a dream you had, or. But Yeah, and because we recorded it in the first year of 2020, not the
Yeah.
first year of 2020, in 2020, which was obviously the first year of lockdowns and everything. Um, it was a really lovely focus for us to have because we kind of, my husband and I write together and he produces all of the music, and we recorded it here in this studio um, in our lounge room. And we kind of just, because all of our work dried up, we had time to actually focus on this. And yeah, so we spent the whole year kind of recording the album, and it was a really lovely way to do it, actually, quite slowly. So things sort of progressed, and even during that process, I wrote more songs that seemed to be more in fitting with this album, which is why
Mm.
we left some of the original ones that were intended off. Um, yeah, so it was a really lovely way to do it.
Sure, sure. I mean, there's one of the a few tracks on here that, well, they all interest me really, but one is "The Planet Who Believed." I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that song.
Yeah, I again, it's inspired by an article I read in the New Scientist, which seems to
Hmm.
be quite a big source of inspiration. And it was about these dust clouds that had been observed in space, and they were behaving like a star, but they
Ah,
weren't a star, and so they were very confused. And I just love that idea of this thing, maybe a planet out in space, thinking it was this star and it could be in charge of everything, and then it turned out that the solar system was actually much more in control. And probably didn't realize while I was writing it, but it's definitely, that feeling of when you think that you are the one you're going to go out there and, like, I don't know, do stuff with your life, and then the world
yeah,
kind of goes, actually, this is out of your hands a bit.
that's right.
um,
I think with
yeah,
John Lennon said that life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans.
yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
well, I
It's
mean, it's a fascinating. Some of the textures evoked on this record as well. It's incredibly immersive listen. I think I was going to ask you. You more or less answered the question anyway. But is your husband involved in the actual writing and as well? 'Cause I've seen him playing with you on stage, but
Yeah.
I wonder if he's involved with the composition of the songs as well.
Yeah, definitely. I sort of, as I said, they sort of start as poems or often,
Uh-huh.
and I generally bring him the song in its kind of basic form
Hmm.
first,
Yeah,
and then he's really good at arranging, and we kind of work on it together from there.
yeah,
And then the producing side of it is pretty much all him. I'm trying to teach myself, but he's really good. And so I'll kind of come in and go like, I want that bit to sound like space, or like
yeah.
this needs to sound like stardust, and he's like, what about this? And it's pretty pretty accurate. And we also used some like in Wonder, we used a real sample of the actual whale call, the 52 hertz whale.
Okay.
We obviously had to, speed it up a bit so you could hear it because it's 52 hertz, which is
Right.
low. I don't think humans can hear that. I could be wrong though. If any audiophiles out there need to correct me. But then, and so Who Remembers, which is the song about the alien invasion, that one we sampled its actual sounds from recordings made of Jupiter, which NASA have released. They've released a whole library of sounds. So yeah, we wanted to make it, I guess, more soundscape as well as music, as just songs.
I mean, in my review, perhaps annoyingly, I don't know, I compared you to Kate Bush.
Not
Um,
annoying. I love her.
so, who are your influences anyway? And is Kate Bush an influence on you? 'Cause she's
Definitely.
kind of she's a bit of a recluse these days. She doesn't do a lot, but
Yeah,
she's left this fine body of work
she
out
has.
there.
I, she's someone I really admire because I mean, she kind of shows you what could be possible.
Yes.
Um, the things that came out of her brain are so unique, and I feel like she's so fearless in the way that she portrayed it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so she's definitely an inspiration. And then I grew up listening to a lot of the Cranberries and Tori Amos. Uh, actually Regina Spektor's a big influence, Imogen
Yeah.
Heap. And I've noticed actually a lot of them are mainly female artists who have kind of forged their own path,
Yeah.
um, which I think is what I'm also trying to do, because
Yeah.
it can be a very narrow-minded world, music industry.
Mhm.
And I think even more today, because I think when you look at back when Kate Bush was in Top of the Pops, you might not see someone like that. Um, but maybe I'm just being small-minded, but yeah. So that's what I always try to focus on. I think to conform and change what you sound like in order to be more commercial and be more attractive to more people, I guess. But the way I'm sort of focusing it is just trying to stick to what feels true to me, not to sound
Sure.
like a high, I don't know, but but yeah, because then I mean, if it's true for you, then it will resonate with people more anyway.
Absolutely. And the song "Immortal." I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that one. That's an interesting one as well.
Yeah, that was I don't know. I was doing a Christmas show in Hastings because I'm an actor and a musical theatre performer as well.
Uh-huh.
And so I was doing this children's show down by the seaside, and I just had this dream one night that I was a god, and it was amazing, and it was so beautifully filmed. And I
Mhm.
met this mortal man, and I took him flying, but then all the gods said no, and they tore him away from me and threw him into the sea. And it was so dramatic; it had to be a song. So yeah, so that came out of that, and I think that's obviously all of my reading of Greek and Roman mythology
Right.
growing up. But I loved that, and I worked with an amazing artist, Luke Eade, to make the music video. He did all the illustrations for it, so it's the only. Oh no, I think there are two animated music videos in the.
There's loads of I mean, mythology. It's full of death and incest and murder. It's
Yeah,
all healthy stuff, isn't it?
it's all the good stuff. All the
Absolutely,
It's very
absolutely.
dramatic, and then maybe that's why I like all the stories, because they're all like it's high drama. Like the stakes are always very high.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the title track "Disco Lasers." It seems to me about the pressures of motherhood. Is this based on anyone in particular, or is it kind of just the concept of motherhood, maybe?
I think for me personally, it was my own fear that I mean, I haven't
Mhm.
had children yet, but
Okay.
but yeah, I think it was my own fear of maybe being too selfish or wrapped up in what I want to do with my life to yeah, I think it was just a classic existential crisis of how what if I can't be there for you enough when I don't even know how I'm supposed to be.
Mhm.
Um, but then at the same time, it sort of turns into this more positive note of, but actually, there's beautiful things out here in the world, and maybe even if I'll try my best. I'll try my best to show you everything, and I hope that maybe the things that you get from me are the wonder that I have for the world, or um, so maybe I could pass on some nice things. Yeah, so it's kind of a whole journey, that song of might fail in some ways. I hope that yeah. So I guess
Oh,
it's a kind of a letter to something that doesn't exist yet, really. But
mhm.
a few people have come up to me at gigs and said, by the way, as a father, like that's how I feel too. So it's definitely a universal parenthood maybe thing.
I was going to ask you about the sleeve design. I mean, it's fabulous. It looks like
You.
a wonderful photo session. I wonder if you tell a
Yeah.
little bit about the sleeve design and are you supposed to be a laser or something in the picture or?
I guess it's yeah, it's kind of space meets 1920s glam.
Oh, okay.
Um, it's I worked with this amazing artist called Rosie Emerson.
Hmm.
She I've sort of modeled for her over the years, and then I got in touch with her about doing the artwork for my album.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, so that concept was hers. She wanted it. I don't know if you've heard of Cecil Beaton. He's a photographer,
I
kind of
haven't,
back in
no.
yeah, so back I think it was the 1920s. It could have been the 30s or 40s,
Oh,
but
okay.
he did a lot of silver, the kind of flapper dresses and the caps.
Yeah.
and everything was mirrors and silver and stuff. And so she was
Okay.
inspired by that, and she used the backing is actually all heat blankets, you know,
Okay.
those fireproof blankets. So she stuck
Right.
those all around the studio um, for that, which was it was yeah, it was a great fun shoot. And we did it was meant to be just the artwork for the album, but then because I decided to release the album as one song separately every month,
Yeah.
we had a different piece of art for every song. So yeah, we did some great stuff. We went underwater and to the beach, and
Sure.
yeah, so yes, it was brilliant.
There's one song I saw a video of yours on YouTube. I can't remember what the song was now, but it's not a song that's on the album. You seem to be mooching around this room or this house.
Ghost.
Yeah, that's it. Yes, yes.
Yes.
And in again, rather annoyingly, perhaps in my video, I compared it to this theme of loneliness. There's a line in that song, something about a face in a jar or something like
Hope,
that.
hope in a jar. Yeah.
That's it. And I thought, well, I instantly thought of Eleanor Rigby, which is also this
Yeah.
wonderful song about loneliness and despair. And but no, it was just fascinating. I mean, so you must have quite a lot of material out there that hasn't emerged.
Yeah.
This is not. Is this your first album then? Is
This is
it?
our first album, yeah, and we've released, I think I'd released maybe 5 singles before, but this
Okay.
was, yeah, because Ghost was written when my marriage visa was refused about 10 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And I got stuck in Australia for nearly 2 years, and my husband
Okay.
Nick was over here.
Right.
And it,
Did he not fancy going to Australia rather than you coming here?
well,
Because the weather over here is not very nice usually.
I know, well, he did love Australia. He came over for 2 Christmases,
Okay.
um, but he had to stay here and earn enough money to meet the financial requirements. And I had to wait for a court hearing. Um, so we won, and I got back, but it was a really horrible experience. And Ghost was the song that I wrote. Probably I don't think I'd done, I kind of shut down a bit during that time. Which interestingly, I think a lot of people probably felt during the last 2 years of that pandemic, where it's just when you're in limbo and you don't know
Yeah.
where things are going, it's very hard to keep momentum. Um, and it could explain why I was so active, because I didn't want to go back to that place again. But yeah, so Ghost was the first song that I wrote after that experience, and that's what it's about, being married to a ghost
Oh,
who
okay.
can see you, but he can't be near you, and keeping your hope in a jar so that one day you can come back to it, but for now it's pointless. So
Oh, it's
yeah, yeah.
well, so so there's certainly enough material for another album perhaps soon.
Mm.
Is there another album in the pipeline?
There is for sure. I think I've realized that the way I work is very, I need to give myself a bit of time to kind of process what's going to come next and let the ideas percolate a bit. And um, but yeah, we've kind of got the idea of the songs that we want and the direction we want it to go. I don't think it will be this year, because it's a huge undertaking doing an album,
Sure.
which
Sure.
I discovered,
Yes, yes.
especially in completely independent. So there are a few times last year that I burnt out a bit, I think, because you're doing all of the promotion and all of the distribution and all of everything is you.
Yeah.
So you can sort of feel like you're just juggling everything, and sometimes it feels like you've dropped everything. Um, but I mean, I don't think I would change that. I think over the years, hopefully, I'll build more of a team around me, but I don't necessarily want to put it in someone else's hands. So it's that thing of like,
Okay.
I want control, but that means I have to do everything. But the wonderful thing that I started in 2020 before the pandemic was Patreon.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and I've been thinking about it for years, but not really knowing how to do it. And so I started it in January. And I think, before that, I was kind of releasing a song a year almost, or maybe, no, pretty much a song a year. And that's partly
Mhm.
because I was working with friends to do music videos who I couldn't afford to pay. So then, they would take a really long time to be able to edit it because it wasn't their, it wasn't a priority for them, which is
Yeah.
understandable. And so everything just took a long time. And the minute I started Patreon and people started subscribing to me monthly, I started to actually have an income that I could use for music. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, that's why last year I could do 10 music videos and, um, you know, hire a water tank and just do all of these things where you go, oh, that would be nice. And then suddenly you realize, oh my goodness, I can do that. So I was able to, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
get vinyl made and all of this stuff. So I'm continuing to do that. And the way we work is we kind of share all of our new music with Patreon first. And we, every month I share a new song and every week I do a poem. And so it's very active on there. So everyone sort of becomes part of the world and the process, and then they get to watch it as it all unfolds.
Sure,
So
sure.
that's been really life changing actually for our creative output.
I have something I want to read to you, actually. It's a comment that one of my subscribers left. A chap named David Croft said, I don't know if you'll read this, but I felt like I had to say a thank you for turning me on to Ebony Buckle's Disco Lasers. Listening to her voice and songs brought out emotions in me. Well, let's just say it moved me very much. I was touched, and I wouldn't have had this experience if I hadn't listened to your review. Thank you.
Oh,
Wonderful, isn't it?
that's beautiful. Yeah, that's really
So,
wonderful to know.
yeah, so music is something that is well, it's very important to my life as well. Although I'm more of an observer rather than yourself. But obviously, this person found your album incredibly poignant, and it is a very poignant album as well, because you go into these areas of human psyche and wonderment that just it's like it is a bit like a storybook, really. And
Yeah,
although there are lots of themes of loss and heartache, I think there's this general warmth and humanity to this album as well, which I rather enjoyed.
oh, I'm really glad. Thank you. Yeah, I think a few people have written to me and said they feel very emotional after listening and they don't know specifically why, but they feel like it's kind of opened up something,
Yeah.
um, which I'm happy with. But I think that's the wonderful thing about music as well is you just like if it comes from your soul, then it goes out into other people's souls, and
Yeah.
there doesn't have to be a specific, you know, line or reason. It just connects in some way, which
Yeah,
is lovely.
absolutely. I've got one more question for you. If you could have written any other song out there in the canon of all those wonderful songs, what song would you like to say was written by you?
Ooh, that's a very good question. Um,
It's a bit of a stinker, isn't it?
yeah, there's. I mean, there's so many. Oh, do you know what? The Whole of the Moon by the Waterboys.
All the boys, yeah, yeah,
I just love that whole, yeah, the whole message of that song and the lyrics and the way it was written. You know, when you sort of listen to some, like, sometimes I do that with my own songs where I go, I can't remember how I came up with that idea.
hmm
Um, hopefully I do something similar again. But yeah, you listen to it, go like, how did you, what were you thinking, and how did it all come about? Yeah, I love that
right.
song.
I certainly eagerly look forward to a new album from you. I shall be keeping an eye on as kind of what you're getting up
Thanks.
to.
Oh, I am doing, forgot to say, I am doing an album this year. I forgot.
What album are you
Very
doing
good.
this year?
Not a good sign. So it's a covers album this year.
Oh, okay.
It's called Myths from the Megaverse,
Right.
and something that I offer my top tier patrons is a cover of their favorite song. And
Oh,
so I've
wow.
ended up with an album of covers, and it's anything
Mhm.
from, you know, Cats in the Cradle to
Yeah,
there's a Kate Bush number in there. There's actually Sweet Dancer by the Waterboys as well.
right.
And then there's also um, I did a George Gently TV show about 10 years ago, a BBC drama, and I played a Geordie folk singer.
Okay.
And
Can you
I
do a good
sung,
Geordie accent?
don't ask me now, but I think it was pretty good at the time. I went to a
Okay.
voice coach because obviously being Australian, it was really confusing.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, even my accent's quite English now. It's not properly Australian, but yeah. So I sung two songs on in that TV show,
Uh-huh.
which was Silver Dagger and
Right.
Matty Groves, and they're traditional folks. But Silver Dagger was made famous by Joan Baez, and Matty Groves,
Matthew
I think,
Groves
was
Fairport Convention, wasn't it?
yeah, exactly. And so that TV show gets shown all over the world all the time,
hmm
because you know BBC love doing their catch ups. I just got paid £40 for the whole years of royalties for that,
Oh,
so
okay. Yeah. Well, so don't
champagne's on me.
Don't go
Uh,
mad with that, will you?
yeah, but I released those two songs, and so that's been an amazing way that people have found my
Mhm.
music, and a lot of my patrons have come from seeing George Gently. And so
Yeah,
because of that, I've put those two songs, because everyone for years have been saying, where can I get this on CD? And obviously I just haven't had the means to be able to do it. So this year I'm releasing a covers album that will also include Silver Dagger and Matty Groves. And that
excellent.
I'm hoping to be out in July, maybe August, but it'll be CD as well.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay. Well, I'll
Yes, yeah,
certainly look forward to hearing that.
yeah, fab.
Anyway, I thank you so much for doing this interview. I wish you the best of luck in everything you with the covers album and the album of new material, perhaps later on. And have a wonderful day.
Thank you. And thanks so much for taking the time to review the album as well. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It was great to listen to. Anyway, thank you very much.
No worries. Have a lovely
Okay.
day.